Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April 21st Grants Pass City Council meeting. I know. We got to get serious here because you're all still talking. All right, let's get started. We're going to start tonight with a moment of silence to clear our minds and get ready for the business. And please rise for the flag salute. Thank you. We are all present here tonight. We're going to start off the evening with a proclamation for Drinking Water Week. Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas only tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy, and whereas any measure of a successful society, low mortality rates, economic growth and diversity, productivity, and public safety are in some way related to access to safe water. And whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which future generations depend, and whereas each citizen of our city is called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, to practice water conservation, and to get involved in local water issues by getting to know their water. Now therefore I, Sarah Bristol, Mayor of the City of Grants Pass, do hereby proclaim May 2nd through 8th, 2021, as Drinking Water Week and urge all city residents to join in supporting this observance. And do we have someone, Jason Kennedy, here to accept the proclamation?
Thank you, Mayor. I really normally have one of the men and women from our water division come and accept that, but today I wanted to just take a second and thank each and every man and woman on our crew for all of the work that they've done as we've been in this pandemic for the last year. So I volunteered to come and accept this award on their behalf, the proclamation, because they have done a tremendous job of ensuring not only that they've stayed healthy, but that our water has stayed protected. And as you all know, water is kind of the cornerstone of our community. It drives the economy, it keeps us up, it keeps our yards clean and dry and green, so it's amazing. But this year also, just as we look towards constructing the replacement water treatment plant, Drinking Water Week takes on a special meaning. It really is probably the most important project this community will have taken on since the construction of their original treatment plant in the early 1930s. So thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you especially to all of the men and women who work on our water crews and ensure that the water is produced, distributed, and kept safe as it makes its way to your tap. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a public hearing on a community development block grant regarding housing and community development needs and priorities for the 2021-22 annual action plan. And who is our presenter today? Hello, welcome.
Is that on? Yes. Good evening. Before I begin, I wanted to mention to you that the background in your packet has some exhibits on it that will attach to it that I'll be talking about through the presentation. Also, I have handed out another packet or some exhibits there. They're the larger ones.
That's the colorful financial chart here?
Yes, so these are a little bit larger exhibits than the ones that are in the slides, so you can reference them as we go through. Now, I wanted to mention before I begin, as an entitlement city, the city is required by HUD every 5 years to prepare a 5-year consolidated plan, which describes the goals the city will undertake to address the needs, resources, and priorities of the community. And within those 5 years, an annual action plan is also prepared each year, outlining the eligible activities that we will be using for that particular year. Last year, the city adopted their second 5-year consolidated plan and also their year 1 annual action plan. And tonight, this is beginning the process for the second year annual action plan. And the first step in that was the request for proposals that you adopted for public services in March. And then now tonight, we're going to be looking at our second step, which is we send out a survey to the community to assess the needs and priorities that the community has. And that's what we're going to review this evening. And then those are going to be incorporated into the year 2 annual action plan. Now, the hearing tonight is not going to be any action taken. It's just to apprise you of the results of the survey. Is it up there? It's not. You don't have it pulled up yet. I have it right here. Maybe I need help. Right there.
Let's see, let's put in presentation mode. All right, so now that is what's on the screen behind you, and there's some notes.
Perfect, thank you. As I said before, the hearing tonight is to apprise the council of the results of the survey, and we have to hold a public hearing per our citizen participation plan in order to apprise you of those results. And the relationship to the council goals, of course, is it provides cooperative shared leadership involving the council, staff, community, enhance community safety, encourage economic opportunities, facilitate sustainable, manageable growth, maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet community needs. The purpose of CDBG is to provide flexible grants assisting cities and counties in development of a viable urban community by providing decent housing, suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities, benefiting low and moderate income persons. And the goals or the major area programs are also the same goals with the affordable decent housing, homelessness, public facilities, non-housing community development, economic development, and public services. This is one of the handouts that you do have. The national objectives, it has it broken down into categories, subcategories, funding caps, allocations. 70% must be predominantly helping LMI, and 20% is what we can max out for administrative costs. And then public services is capped at 15%. The 5-year goals, which you also have as Exhibit 1 to the background, it's a little bit larger and goes into more depth. We have affordable housing opportunities as our Goal 1. Goal 2 is prevent homelessness. Goal 3, support economic development. Goal 4, public infrastructure. And Goal 5, neighborhood blight. And each one of those is described in more detail on your Exhibit 1. The summary of the survey, which also is Exhibit 2, describing more in detail, We opened the survey on February 8th. It closed on April 9. It was available on the city's website and also emailed to CDBG contacts. We received 28 responses. Participants were asked questions regarding homelessness, affordable housing, community development, and public services, ranking them from highest to lowest in what they felt were the community needs. So the homelessness and housing, permanent housing, traditional and temporary shelters came in at the top 3. Special needs housing, more work needs to be done for homeless, mental health, seniors, and veterans. For community development, the results were job creation retention, employment training, commercial industrial rehabilitation, public services, homeless, mental health, housing, public facilities, more youth centers, job vocational training centers, and child care facilities. Public improvements and infrastructure, more transportation improvements, downtown revitalization, and then water system improvements were the top 3. This is a small copy of what we are allocating. It is a proposed allocation. It's also in your larger 11 by 17 that you have. And we have broken it down into those goals that we discussed earlier. Now, as for our schedule, already in February, we've done the survey. Tonight is the hearing to advise you of the results of the survey. June 9th and July 9th will be the public comment period, 30-day comment period for the draft Year 2 annual action plan. August 4th, it will be brought back to you for adoption. August 13 will be the last day for submittal of the draft plan to HUD. And then October 1, the program year starts. September 30th, the program year ends of next year. This is the second year, as I said before, of the second 5-year consolidated plan. Any projects, activities which began in the first year, which we're currently in right now and will end on September 30th, many of them are in progress, so they will continue into the second year until they are completed. And any funds from prior years will be associated with those years, and they will be funded from those years. The resource revenue is, this public hearing, we do not commit the funds. The CDBG for this year approximately has given us $391,555 for this year too. However, Congress hasn't appropriated that yet, so the allocations, when they do, and we receive the final letter from HUD, we will adjust the amounts that are on the proposal accordingly to the amount that they finalize for us. No action is required this evening. It's mostly informational. And following the public comment period of the draft, it will be brought back to you in early August for consideration and adoption before it is submitted to HUD. Questions?
Thank you. Council, do you have questions? Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Ann. And thank you for providing this larger chart. This is helpful. I actually have a question about this. Are there funds from the first 5-year period that have not been used yet?
Yes, there are.
Would it be possible to see a version of this maybe with another column showing those funds from the previous years? Because I think we have last year's and the proposed for this year.
Correct, I do.
Would it be possible, just maybe over email or something to see that, just so we can see what is available on those other line items?
Yes, I can do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Valerie?
Yes, thank you, Ann. I just have a question on when we're talking about affordable and decent housing and the amount that is tracked as site acquisition and improvement for affordable housing. I'm just wondering what exactly that curtails or involves.
For the site acquisition, what that does is it helps with we can put forth money for, we cannot do new construction, but we can certainly help with street improvements, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, for improvements on property that is already, already owned by someone else and they're developing it.
Does that include like building ramps and that sort of stuff, or would that be under?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
So that's
Yes,
what
it
that
does.
is for?
Yes.
So basically helping people to stay in their homes as they age, sort of?
Well, actually, that would fall more under the category of the rehabilitation and the ADA improvements, which is a little bit higher up on the list there.
But it's kind of the same thing, it's just kind of,
Yeah,
Okay.
very close.
Okay, thank you.
Brian?
I see here that, and I don't know who would be the right person to answer this, but I see that the funding that was allocated for weatherization has been woefully underutilized over the years, and there's a surplus available there now. And I'm just wondering if we have any opportunity to either help UCAN or partner with another organization to help utilize those funds.
Actually, there is, I have been in contact with the young gentleman who has now taken over the weatherization, and we have spoken several times, and I know that we have quite a few funds that are left over from prior years. They spent some time the other last weeks, and they were looking to see if there were other projects that UCAN might have that this could fall into and help with. And we spoke last week, and he said they were not able to find any other projects. So now my next step is to talk with our HUD representative, and then I'm going to see how we can maybe reallocate those funds to something else. Unfortunately, it would have to be, it's not a public service, so it would have to be reallocated accordingly to something similar to what the weatherization is. So we are in talks trying to figure out how we're going to move this money.
Okay, great. And then just one other quick question. I see here there's a line item for a makerspace / innovation hub, and we were partnering with RCC to do that. That's kind of not happening anymore. But it says in here that the city is reaching out to another facility in GP to use those funds, and I was just wondering if you had any more details about if there is a specific facility or if it's just kind of we're still looking.
A little of both. I have been talking with Susan Searider, and she's with the Economic Development, and she is aware of who the people are out in the community, and I believe there is one individual that does have a facility and is already up. I don't know if it's running yet, and we are going to reach out to that person so that we can start giving them some money here. We also allocated money last year, so we'd like to use both of those to see what they need.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Rick?
Thank you. On the weatherization, I know some people that probably could use it but may not be aware of this program. Are there readily available applications for that, or how does that work?
UCAN is the one that is running that program, and so they can contact UCAN and see how, if there are applications. I'm not exactly sure how UCAN is doing that, but they can definitely contact them and ask them about that. Of course, the houses have to meet the criteria, and I think that's one of the reasons that this program has kind of lagged behind, is because some of the houses that are so old that do need the weatherization, the cost to repair them, you are not going to realize your money if you put that into some of them. So that's been the hang-up on most of them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Vanessa?
Under blight remediation, I'm showing that these funds could only be used if the city creates a receivership program. Is that possible? What kind of resources would that take?
I'm not sure what type of resources it would take, but I know that at one point in time, we did have an ordinance put together for receivership, and that was some time ago, so I'm not real sure. That would probably have to go to the city attorney, and as to what the city plans to do to creating a receivership so that they can begin to do some of that. But before they can, they would need to have a receivership program in place.
Go to council outlining that process.
Thank you.
Questions? All right, thank you.
All right.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public here to speak on this topic? All right, that was a very brief public hearing. And we're not expected to take action on this tonight, so we will move on to our next public hearing, which is to consider a resolution designating the 4 coast redwoods at Robert C. Martin Park as heritage trees. And I think somebody's grabbing our presenter, so we'll wait just a moment.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tony Meekum is our urban forester, and he has prepared the presentations. I apologize, I don't know where he is at the moment. I will get a hold of him right away. I don't know if it's possible to maybe shift a couple of things around for the moment, but I will reach out to him right now.
Okay, we'll we'll move up our quasi-judicial hearing relating to a second reading of the ordinance amending comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 1404 Flower Lane and 1389 Pansy Lane. And because this one is a quasi-judicial hearing, I have to read a statement. Is that correct, Mark? For second reading?
For the second reading, you do not need to read the admonishment because that's a notice of appeal rights. And
Oh, good, because Tony just walked in, but we will still continue with this item, but I will go quickly now. So is there a motion regarding? Oh, Joel, thank you.
So I move to adopt the ordinance amending the comprehensive plan and zoning map and have it read by title only, second reading.
Thank you. Second from Valerie. Karen, are you ready for the second reading?
We need a vote first.
Oh, we need to vote on whether or not to read it. We'll start with Joel. How do you vote?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kurt?
yes.
Vanessa?
No.
Brian?
No.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Okay, 6 to 2, we will read the second reading.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending the comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 1404 Flower Lane and 1389 Pansy Lane.
Thank you, and then we need to vote on it again? We're done. We're done. Okay. We'll move right back to item number 1B then, which was the public hearing on the Coast Redwoods. And welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Just one moment.
You know,
Mine-
I'm just going to note, I made a mistake earlier with roll call. Oh, there he is. Rob's there. I'm so confused, never mind. Continue, Tony, I'm sorry.
No worries. My name is Tony Meekum. I'm the urban forester for the city, and I am here to present on heritage tree designation for coast redwoods at Robert C. Martin Park. The subject and summary of this presentation is to review the recommendation of the Urban Tree Advisory Committee to designate the 4 coast redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens for their scientific name, at Robert C. Martin Park as heritage trees. This designation will recognize the significant community benefit of the trees due to their age, size, species, horticultural quality, and historical value. Relationship to council goals: maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet community needs by enhancing our community's tree canopy. As a background for this, this is the very first heritage tree designation for the city. So this hearing out of the 2 tonight, I have a little background on that process, and the Urban Tree Advisory Committee went through that process for the very first time, and now we're here with City Council. According to our municipal codes, our Municipal Code and Development Code, the City of Grants Pass recognizes that trees are community resources that purify air, filter stormwater, reduce flooding, provide shade and wind protection, reduce street noise and glare, screen unsightly objects and scenes, provide a restful and healthy environment, enhance tourism, increase property value, support wildlife habitat, regulate surface and river temperatures, reduce erosion, and more. And those are all listed in those code sections. The purpose of the heritage tree section of the municipal code is, quote, to recognize, foster appreciation and provide for protection of heritage trees. Currently, there are no city-designated heritage trees in Grants Pass. The Urban Tree Advisory Committee has recognized trees in years past as significant trees, and this can create a little bit of confusion. These are ceremonial recognitions, often for private property trees. Significant tree awards are handed out during the annual Arbor Day celebration. Unlike heritage trees, significant trees from the Urban Tree Advisory Committee do not have added regulations or protections. Trees on public and semi-public property are regulated under Grants Pass Municipal Code Title 10. Apart from development code regulations set in the development code, private property trees that are non-hazardous do not have city regulations on preservation, pruning, maintenance, or removal. The Heritage Trees chapter of the Municipal Code, 10.02, provides an opportunity for constituents to nominate a tree for protections and regulations like those that govern public and semi-public trees. The Heritage Tree Program is a way for property owners to honor the legacy of their land and for constituents to honor the legacy of public lands. So here we are, the very first Heritage Tree public meeting for the City Council. Very briefly, I just wanted to go over the nomination and recognition process as laid out in our municipal code. Any tree within city limits may be nominated as a heritage tree. For trees on private property, the nomination moves forward only if the property owner consents. For trees on public property or public right-of-way, the nomination moves forward only if the city manager consents. A narrative by the applicant must be included with the nomination. The applicant must explain how the tree qualifies, and the municipal code gives us those qualifications. The tree must be of significant community benefit due to age, size, species, horticultural quality, or historical value. And the tree must also be healthy, structurally sound, and non-hazardous. For the review process and possible city council designation, the Urban Tree Advisory Committee reviews nominations along with a staff report on the tree. The committee decides if they wish to recommend the tree to the City Council for designation. City Council reviews the committee's recommendation and considers any testimony by interested persons. City Council may designate the tree as a heritage tree by resolution. So for heritage trees, possibly the reason why we would consider this, there are protections and regulations associated with them. So similar to trees on public property and in the public right-of-way, heritage trees must be kept free of certain prohibited activities as detailed in Grants Pass Municipal Code 10.02.060. Some examples of prohibitive activities include it's prohibited to fill or pile materials at or within the drip line of the tree, posting signage or devices to the tree, topping the tree, pruning without a tree permit, and the municipal code does say that branches 3 inches or smaller in diameter and 10 feet or closer to ground level do not require a permit. They consider that routine maintenance, or the code does, sorry. Also, removal of the tree without a tree permit is prohibited, and excavation in the drip line without a tree permit is prohibited. So those are some examples in that section of the municipal code. A heritage tree may be removed if it meets one of these qualifications. If the tree becomes a hazard, if the tree needs to be removed in the case of an emergency, if the tree must be removed for the installation of a utility, or if development approved through the development code requires the tree removal. For that last point with development, the section of the municipal code 10.02.090 states that in cases of a tree's proposed removal for development, quote, the city manager may require the building footprint of the development to be staked to allow for accurate verification of the permit application, and where reasonable, may require minor development alterations when it can be demonstrated that said alterations could save or increase the likelihood of survival of a heritage tree or trees. If a heritage tree removal permit is denied by the city manager, the applicant can appeal to the city council pursuant to Grants Pass Municipal Code 10.02.150. So for the 2 sets of trees tonight, they're on public property, which is allowed under the municipal code. And they're, for our first batch, are 4 coast redwoods at Robert C. Martin Park. They were nominated for heritage tree status. And this is at the intersection of Southwest 4th Street and Southwest M Street. These trees were nominated by Joel King, and his application and narrative can be found in your packet tonight on pages 22 and 23. The applicant states that the trees satisfy the requirements of heritage tree status, noting significant age, size, species, horticultural quality, and historical value. The Urban Tree Advisory Committee agreed and recommended designation on February 8th, 2021. Staff report agrees with the applicant's narrative. My report begins on page 16 of the packet. Speaking to the age and historical value of these trees, they're approximately 105 years old, and we were graciously able to find that out through a wonderful article in the Daily Courier in February that featured the Coast Redwoods on the front page, along with the inspiring story of Arden McConnell and her family. These trees represent a great history of Grants Pass citizens with the foresight of planting trees, and have turned into great assets for our community, casting extensive shade, and now before the city council over 100 years later. And I'm thrilled to share that Arden McConnell is here with us tonight, and her family came from out of state to be here for this moment. Coast redwoods can live up to 2,000 years or even longer in their natural environment. So within the urban environment, that's not likely, because urban environments are quite harsh compared to natural forested landscapes. For the size, the tallest tree of the 4 is 155 feet tall. We were able to use a drone to accurately measure that height and take some photos. The other 3 trees are slightly shorter. The tree diameters from east to west are 72.5, 57, 46, and 51 inches at breast height, which is 4.5 feet up from ground level. So the photo on the bottom left is a vantage point looking west, northwest from the tallest tree. And then the bottom right photo is looking south to southeast, and that's at 155 feet. I think these really illustrate how tall these trees are, and anything, whether it's a drone or a bird or maybe an ambitious squirrel, can really get a good vantage of our city. The species is also significant. Coast redwoods are the tallest tree species in the world. They're native to coastal California and just barely southwest Oregon in our neighboring Curry County. They're listed as endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature as of 2013, but I noted in the packet that that's up for some debate, but not really the scope for tonight. The cost implication to designate this tree is nothing more than staff time to help with installation. Arden and her family have graciously taken the opportunity to work with Parks, our park supervisor or superintendent, to design a plaque for the location. And the municipal code does discuss that a plaque can be placed for any heritage tree. And for call to action, action date, of course, is at council's discretion. The alternatives, this is on page 15. Move to approve the resolution designating the 4 coast redwoods as heritage trees, deny the proposed heritage tree designation, or possibly move to a later workshop or meeting. And I'm happy to say that the Urban Tree Advisory Committee Chair, Doug Tripp, and our Vice Chair, Dan McBurdy, and another committee member, Tammy McBurdy, are here along with Arden and her family. So if you have any questions.
Thank you, Tony. Do we have any questions? You did such an outstanding job that we have no questions. All right, well, this is a public hearing, so is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this topic? Please step up and introduce yourself.
Am I on?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I'd like to thank Tony for that wonderful presentation. I am almost honored tonight with the acknowledgement that my father was the one who planted those trees when he was a child with his uncle who owned that property at that time. They actually went over to the coast to help another uncle clear his land. He was homesteading near the coast, and that uncle, who lived on the coast homesteading, gave my father and his uncle the starts of those trees as a thank you. And so I wasn't aware of that for many years. As a child, I didn't care, till my father drove me down the street one time and pointed at those trees and said, Uncle George and I planted those trees. And so I love that. It was great. They were pretty good size at that time. And so that is sort of the story of those trees. They've been there those trees are over 100 years old. So I'm excited tonight, and I know there's 4 generations here to be grateful to Tony for starting the Heritage Tree and the tree committee, and Joel King for nominating it. Thank you very much, Joel. So my son and my grandson and myself are 3 generations here, but the 4th generation is up there looking down, just having a ball with this, getting a big kick out of it. So I'm happy to speak to that. So thank you, Tony, very much. Thank you for the Dan and the people who decided to have a heritage tree. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much. Any questions? No? Okay.
No questions. Thank you for being here and for bringing your family.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Please come forward.
I love trees. Good evening, council, staff, mayor.
Can you tell us your name?
City manager. I'm sorry, I'm Dan McBurdy. I'm a member of the tree committee out here. Okay, as you know, trees are just, they're special. I come from the desert where we didn't have any trees, so the 15 years that I've been here, it's been absolutely spectacular. Okay, trees are, second only to the charm of our historic district. When I met Arden here, and we worked on that for a while, are our trees. Okay, Grants Pass is just known for a spectacular variety of trees, so I'm going to fight all I can to recognize a significant tree. I'm in favor of that, and every other tree event that we can get. Trees should be thought of as an infrastructure. I really think that we should plant more now. Chinese proverb says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the next best time is now. Okay, most of us when we're young, if we invest well when we're younger, we're in much better shape when we're older. I think this city could do a little bit of the same thing. Let's plant some trees now, and in 20 years we will reap the benefits of some more of those trees. I know we're trying to work on the tree committee. Arden has been a friend of mine since Historical Building Society when we expand the historical district. So when I learned of that, I had to come up tonight and say thank you. It's been a while since we've seen each other. And congratulations to you guys, at least taking the moment to possibly recognizing this symbolic gesture. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here? All right. Oh, I think we just give each person one chance, Arden. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say my father's name is Sam McConnell, and at one time he was a counselor for the city of Grants Pass.
Oh, terrific. Thank
I
you.
just want that on the record.
All right, we'll open it up for council discussion. Valerie?
I love trees as well, and I don't really think there's much to discuss because I think this is absolutely wonderful. And so it's an honor for me to move to approve the resolution designated the Four Coast Redwoods at Robert C. Martin Park as heritage trees.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Vanessa with the second. Any other discussion? All right, I'll just note quickly before we vote, I grew up a block away from these trees and I enjoyed them my whole life, so I'm happy to be a part of the process tonight and glad to hear your history, Arden, and it's neat that you have your family here.
Yeah.
With that, let's vote. Valerie, the motion is to approve the resolution designating the Four Coast Redwoods at Robert C. Martin Park as heritage trees. How do you vote?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
And DJ has stepped outside, so motion passes 7-0. With that, we will move on to our next very similar public hearing. We have a resolution designating the this is hard to say, Cork Oak at the Grants Pass Water Treatment Plant as a heritage tree.
And that's me again.
Welcome back, Tony.
Thank you. Similar subject and summary, review the recommendation of the Urban Tree Advisory Committee to designate the cork oak, called Quercus suber in the Latin or scientific, at the water treatment plant as a heritage tree. My apologies for that typo. This designation will recognize the significant community benefit of the tree due to its size and species. Same relationship to council goals: maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet community needs by enhancing our community's tree canopy. The cork oak is at the water treatment plant and was nominated for heritage tree status. This was nominated by Jim Love. His application and narrative can be found in your packet on pages 35 and 36. The applicant states that the tree satisfies the requirements of heritage tree status for its significant size and species. The Urban Tree Advisory Committee agreed and recommended designation on February 8th, 2021. The staff report I prepared agrees with the applicant's narrative, and my report begins on page 28 of your packet. For the size of the tree, it's approximately 60 feet tall. Cork oaks achieve an average mature height of around 70 feet. Of course, there are some notable exceptions throughout the world. California claims that one of their big tree, cork oaks, is 89 feet tall. So ours will get there. I have faith. And this is 31 inches in diameter. So of significance, its species, the cork oak is an evergreen oak. So the photos that I have in this presentation are actually taken in winter. So you can see it has its leaves on. It's native to the Mediterranean regions, notably in Portugal and Spain, and pretty much all around where the Mediterranean Sea meets land. It's of significant cultural value to its native range region, and it's significant for its economic value to the wine industry. Its bark is used for cork, which is an appropriate name for the tree. In the photo on the right, you can see my hand is up against the tree. Its bark has large furrows, and the bark can regenerate, so these trees can be sustainably harvested for its cork. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, it is illegal to cut down a cork oak without government permission in Portugal. And it's a very rare species in Grants Pass. We have not completed our public and semi-public tree inventory, though we're gonna get back up to speed since the leaves are out. So I can't give you an accurate representation of how rare it is in the city, but I have not seen another one in our public properties or right-of-way. For the tree condition, this tree, as I noted in my staff report, does have some minor issues, and I absolutely wanted the committee and now the council to know what I found. There are some small dead branches observed. They're non-hazardous, but they do exist in the canopy. There are two touching, encroaching limbs. And as you can see in the photo on the top right, there's a partially buried root flare. And then there is a paved surface on the south side of the tree. I went and had a nice tour with the water treatment plant superintendent, and the paved surface is similar to a road. It's asphalt, there's a curb there, so it's similar to as if we were nominating a right-of-way tree in that sense. I don't think any of these would disqualify this tree based on the municipal code, which would disqualify it if it's irreparably damaged, diseased, hazardous, or unsafe. It did not meet any of those disqualifying measures, even close. But I do want to point those out. Fortunately, those conditions above can be mitigated through some best management practices that could further improve the health and structure of the tree. And those are pretty routine things that we've done in parks, exposing root flares with air excavation, and then also obviously pruning some of those dead branches if needed. For this one, the heritage, for the cost implication, the municipal code does mention a plaque to be placed near a tree that's designated. So this is a very approximate value of about $300 for a plaque. We can absolutely go cheaper than that. And I checked in with my the park superintendent, and there are some funds in the parks operation budget that are coded for our Tree City USA operational budget, and we could use that for that funding, and then some staff time to install the plaque. So similar call to action, obviously at council's discretion for the action date. Alternatives: move to approve the resolution designating the cork oak as a heritage tree. Deny the proposed heritage tree designation, or move to workshop or a future meeting. And again, we do have the committee chair here if you need him.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about the cork oak? Valerie.
What exactly is a root flare-up? What does a root flare-up entail?
Great question. So here in the photo on the top right, it looks like the tree is just kind of stuck in the ground, almost like a telephone pole or a utility pole. what we want to see is the transition from the trunk to the roots. So that's called the root flare. And that's an area that we don't want buried because there's a lot of respiration in those cells. And so it can cause some issues with the exchange of gas, and it can also encourage adventitious roots to grow out of the trunk because it thinks that it needs to source some nutrients and stabilize there, and those roots can kind of get a little wonky and turn into girdling roots. So if we can just kind of move the soil a little bit and see that flare, then we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? All right. We will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this tree? All right, please come forward.
Dan McBurdy, Tree Committee. This is great, guys. This cork tree is magnificent. I don't know, you can go up, you can touch it, you can see it. And some of the others, the Tree Committee or the City of Grants Pass has a map for Redwood Park or Riverside Park. It has a map for, a walking map over here for Reinhardt Park. We have a map for most of the significant trees that are already here to add a heritage tree to our beautiful town. It's great. Just thank you for even considering this.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else? All right, we will close the public comment. Council discussion? So quiet tonight. Vanessa?
I think it's worth noting in our packet that because the bark is quite thick, it contributes to the fact that the tree is fire resistant. I thought that was very interesting. I'd like to see more of these trees in our community if at all possible. With that, I would like to make a motion that I move to approve the resolution designating the cork oak at the Grants Pass Water Treatment Plant as a heritage tree.
Thank you. Second from Valerie. Discussion? No? All right. On the motion to approve designating the cork oak as a heritage tree, Vanessa, you're up.
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
8-0. We now have 2 heritage trees in Grants Pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right, and we have already addressed item D on our agenda, so we will move on to legislative hearing item E, which pertains to an ordinance amending Development Code Article 4, as well as Article 7 and 13. So at this time, I will open the public hearing to consider the items listed on our agenda under item 1E. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by public comment, and then the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to consider this matter? Nope. Do any of the councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria. All testimony and evidence will be directed towards those criteria. The criteria which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. Am I reading the right one, Mark? Is that what you're commenting about over there?
Just thinking about how ordinarily we wouldn't actually read the admonishment on this one, because this is continued, correct, Brad? But since we enhanced the notice, that's why it was continued. I would say it's wise to read it. And I'm going to be honest with you, they both sound quite similar to me, and I didn't notice the distinction between the legislative versus the quasi-judicial. Hopefully it says at the top.
Yeah,
It
this
should
one
be-
says legislative land
Okay,
use
then
hearing.
that's correct. This is a legislative.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. We'll now begin the hearing with a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Brad Clark, Community Development. Since you have already had a more detailed presentation on this back in February, I've just got a few slides to kind of give you an update on what's happened since your February meeting. As Mark mentioned, it is a continued public hearing. The purpose is adoption of the ordinance to amend the development code in 3 different sections, articles there, 4, 7, and 13. And the relationship to your council goals is to support the goal to facilitate sustainable, manageable growth by designating the city as a certified local government to enhance the city's historic preservation goals. So the Historical Building and Sites Commission, sorry I used an acronym on this slide, we're trying not to do that, held a public hearing on December 10th on this ordinance. They adopted their findings of fact, which recommended to the City Council approval of this on February 8th. And then the council held its first public hearing on February 17th. And as you all may recall, there was some testimony at that hearing with some concerns about the ordinance. I think based on that, as well as just a desire for greater public input, the council directed staff to send a notice to all of the historic district. So on March 12th, staff did do that. We mailed 82 letters to property owners, and then we actually also mailed them to business owners / tenants, so that everyone who was in the district would actually have the opportunity to read the proposed code amendment. So it did notify them of the amendment. It included a copy of that, and a copy of that is in your packet. A copy of what was mailed to the approximately 200 or so people was there. There was one comment letter submitted in response to that mailing, and that was by Nathan Miller, who is a property owner as well as a member of the Historical Building and Sites Commission. And then the letter that Nathan wrote was reviewed by Historical Building and Sites Commission. That was also part of the council's direction at the meeting, that you wanted HBSC to have a chance to review the letter and the comments, any comments that were received. So they did that, and a copy of HBSC's response to Mr. Miller's letter was included in your packet. We do have Chair Ward Warren present with us tonight, and he is prepared to kind of summarize the HBSC's position in the letter that was there. There was 4 main points that they had to address Mr. Miller's letter. So just a reminder, there's really kind of 2 pieces to this ordinance. The first is adoption of the certified local government language, which would allow Grants Pass a number of different, it would allow us to file for applications related to historic preservation that we currently cannot do. It also gives us some technical assistance on certain design standards and review of different buildings, maybe that are nominated for the register, things like that. So that is one piece, and that CLG, as I understand it, from those that have been on HBSC much longer than I've been around, started more than 10 years ago, the conversation to become a certified local government. The second piece to the ordinance are some sections that don't directly relate to becoming a certified local government, but were amendments that HBSC is recommending. So these are kind of packaged together, and there's 4 of those. The second bullet here, which adds denial of demolition as an allowable action of the HBSC, was really the primary topic of Mr. Miller's letter, which opposed this particular section of the code amendment. So that I wanted to highlight. Of everything else that we didn't receive any comments on at all, but that section 13.463, which would give the HBSC the ability to actually deny the demolition of a historic structure, was the main purpose of that letter. Again, that doesn't mean that that couldn't be appealed to council. As it's worded, that would give HBSC, the authority to do that. Currently, they don't have the ability to deny. Their criteria to approve this text amendment, there's 4 of them that are in the code that are required to be met for council to adopt this ordinance. HBSC reviewed them, staff reviewed them, and those are outlined in more detail in the staff report. The main cost implication is really related to staff resources and existing Historical Building Sites Commission and the Community Development Planning Division providing staffing for any kind of topics that might come before the city related to historic preservation. There's really, other than that, no anticipated expenses. So your call to action is to kind of continue the public hearing, taking any additional public testimony tonight, and then discuss and deliberate on a potential decision. And then you do have, of course, the options there to approve or deny or postpone the ordinance. If you do direct us to proceed, we would prepare findings of fact for your May 5th meeting.
Thanks, Brad. Do we have any questions for staff? Rick?
Thank you, Brad. Can you go back a couple slides to the one more? So the bottom to 13453 and 13456. Okay, the first one, 453, adds vinyl and plastics that require review. But the second one, can you clarify that a little bit better?
Yeah, so 13.4536, is that the one that you're referring to?
Yes.
So yeah, removing vinyl and fiberglass as allowed material on signs, as it's before you tonight and as it was recommended to you by the Historical Building Sites Commission, that was there. I do believe that the chair has some topics or some more information on that particular one to bring to you tonight. There was a presentation from the owner of Logan Signs to the Historic Building Sites Commission between your February hearing and tonight, where she presented, she had kind of a show and tell here to the Historical Building Sites Commission on some of the materials that they use and that other sign companies use. So I think that the chair is prepared tonight to kind of make a proposed modification to that.
But I just want to clarify, as it stated there, is it moving the vinyl and fiberglass back to the Historic Buildings and Sites Committee for approval, where it's not outright prohibited, but it requires review? Is that?
No, as it's worded, it would actually remove them as allowable materials on signs altogether.
Okay, I'm again feeling that's too strong a requirement. There are many signs out there that are already vinyl, so I guess I would like to hear the further presentation by later. Thank you.
Okay, we just need to ask questions of Brad right now. Does anyone have questions for Brad? Okay, let's have Ward. We'll open it up for you to come speak on behalf of this item.
Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak to this topic. I have to say that it's a lot more complex than most of you realize what we're talking about tonight. The CLG, for one thing, has been almost 20 years in the making. And so for us, this is a big deal to be able to be right at the point of hopefully adopting it. The CLG, Certified Local Government, is administered through the State Historic Preservation Office. And so the staff has had to do, work to come up to their standards. But there are currently 54 certified local governments in cities in Oregon. Most of them have been certified local governments since they had a historic district. For some reason, it's moved slowly, but like I have emails with the woman who is still the head at the State Historic Preservation Office of the CLG program, dating back, emails with her dating back to the early 2000s. But anyway, the exciting thing is we're right there, and hopefully that'll happen. One thing it does is it opens up grants. We've been, all these years, we've lost grants to other cities because the federal government provides money for historic preservation and improvements to cities. And so the State Historic Preservation Office is required to give a portion of that money to cities that have certified local governments. So for all these years, we've been kind of left out of that, and now hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that. Things like signage and just all kinds of grants for building improvements and so forth that would be basically free money to the city. So that's exciting.
Ward, I don't want to interrupt you, but I forgot to warn you up front that we have 10 minutes for the 10 minutes for the presentation. I'm sorry, I forgot to say anything before you started, so I just wanted to let you know now what we're working with.
Okay, so what are you asking me to do?
I'm just letting you know that you have 10 minutes. So
I don't know. I think that there's some stuff that needs to be clarified. If you want me to just do clarification like of
we'll have time for
items you're
questions.
concerned about, I can do that.
I'm just trying to let you know we have 10 minutes for your presentation, but then the counselors can ask questions. I'm sorry, I didn't say it up front.
Yeah, I didn't time it, so I don't really know.
Okay.
But like I said, if you want me to just clarify, you know, like say Rick's question, and a couple other things, I think there is, you know, that this is an important thing tonight, and I think but if you're already, I mean, to me it's a no-brainer to approve it, and the fact that the city sent out over 200 letters to all the business and property owners in the historic district, and only got one letter is pretty significant, because what it tells me is people are happy in the historic district. They love being there. They take pride in it. You know, 85% approximately of the property owners opted in to the expanded historic district, and they're happy. They love being there. So I probably don't need to sell you on the historic district. You all know how popular it is. So if you'd like me to just clarify, like I said, or ask me questions, I'd be happy to do that. I'll take direction from you.
I'm sorry, did you want to address, were you planning to address the specific changes that are being proposed?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought. I just wanted to let you know about the time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nobody told me about how long I had or what. Like I said, this is a big night for the Historic Commission and for the city. But I'll get to the vinyl question. Okay, so what we're trying to prevent, because Rick asked about this at the prior meeting, and so because we do take pride in the district, and I think pretty much everybody, you can see it. You can see the pride in the buildings and in the businesses. But we do have some that opted out. And so I've seen, unfortunately, a few of those that have opted out kind of flaunt the guidelines that we developed with staff years ago that streamlined the process. And that's why the council, years ago, the council used to have regular appeals from business owners because the guidelines were very subjective. There were no guidelines really. And so now we have subjective guidelines or objective guidelines we developed with staff. And so people are happy. You don't see appeals. And we don't have nearly as many reviews because people can have their project approved right at the counter. This is a brochure. that's available in the planning office and the finance office. And basically, it has the guidelines that if people go in and the city sees the addresses in the historic district, they're given one of these brochures, and it has the guidelines that we developed several years ago. So actually, none of the materials, I don't believe in the current guidelines. It says in here, for example, that you can use vinyl cut letters on signs. And that is what's currently being passed out in the planning office. What we're trying to prevent is people that did opt out, and some of them kind of flaunt not only the historic guidelines, but they also flaunt other city codes, such as the sign code. So what we're trying to prevent is this. I made this at home, and it's basically, Rick, I knew you'd appreciate it. And actually, for $6.99, I bought the vinyl letters on a sheet, and then this is just a piece of scrap wood. And I ran out of room, so I had to, kind of draw it.
Can you use the mic?
But this is what we're trying to prevent downtown. We can't really stipulate that signs have to be done professionally, but the way that what I would like to have, because I did invite Lisa Woodruff to our meeting, and I asked her to bring samples of some of the current composite materials that they're using today, which she did. So I'd like to insert one little thing with your approval into this that would kind of clarify this situation with vinyl. Actually, as far as I'm concerned, anything, just because it says not a preferred material, that doesn't mean it's prohibited. We are really there for guidance. So anyone can come in with any kind of a project that they envision, and we would just ask them, or probably we already know, but is this acceptable on a building that's from 1920 or from 1900? And if they make a good case, just like when people come up and make a case to you on development, if you like it, you approve it. So just being not preferred does not mean prohibited. Being not a preferred material or a recommended material, they can still do it. So what I'd like to do as far as the vinyl is, if you look in your packet where you see the red letters, should be in the packet, right, Red? Are the changes? This is the letter that was sent out to 250 or whatever business and property owners, and it has the proposed changes.
I think that's page 140. Is that regarding colors?
Yes, colors, materials, awnings. So if you look at that section, where it says elements of compatibility, it's section 13.453. Do you know what page that's on in the packet, Brad? I think that they should be on the same page. Sure.
It's page 178.
So if you look on that list under 13.453, elements of compatibility, and you go down to the very first red letters that say vinyl and any form of plastics, I would like to add three words to that,
Just
or
no,
composite.
it's not red on our packet, but it's item C3 on page 178. It's
Correct.
the second from last line.
So that would be one of the ones that's designated to be changed, okay? And I think that would be more inclusive if we said vinyl in any form of plastics or composite materials. Just add those three words. And then if you go to under number 5, awning, marquees, and canopies. If you see that under 5B, it says preferred materials are canvas, or wood or metal, and then I would add there and/or wood, specifically referring to canopies.
It's the top line on page 180.
That would be under 5B. So preferred materials are canvas, metal, and/or wood, depending upon the age and design of the building. Okay, thanks. Okay, and then if you go down under number 6B, materials, and you go down to, this addresses the vinyl issue. If you go down to number 4, and it says vinyl or other sheet claddings for backing, and then underneath that it says fiberglass, high-density urethane foam, and similar cast.
Which,
And I just have to finish this sentence.
yeah, but
and
hang
that's
on,
all.
because I think I've lost place anyway. What are you, I was looking at 6.
This
First-
address, it's under 6, under signs.
Signs, yep.
Okay, and you go down to, it would be B, material,
Okay.
and then number 4, IV, 4.
Oh, yeah, I have glass is what mine says on item 4.
Okay, so that would be on page, I'm sorry, this letter that was sent out is a little different than what's in your packet. So on page 180,
Yes. Item 6B is for materials regarding sign materials. We have 1 metal, 2 painted metal, 3 wood, 4 glass.
right, so, painted metal, and then wood and glass. Brad, can you come up for a second? Because this really gets to the heart of Rick's concern. This is the letter that was sent out to all the people, and this was being eliminated, correct? Okay. So what I would like to see added, what we would like to see added in here is that this wording, vinyl, plastics, foam, and other composite materials may be acceptable but require a review. And so I talked to Lisa Woodruff about that also, and she was fine with that. She understands what our goals are, and our goals are to keep the historic district looking good and keep it, clean, safe, popular, and successful. And so I think that addresses that. So in other words, there's really no materials that are prohibited.
So Ward,
Just
could you?
a few that would require a review.
Ward, could you repeat what you and Lisa came up with for that?
What I just read?
Yeah, could you read that again, just a
Sure.
little slower?
So vinyl, plastics, foam, and other composite materials may be acceptable but require a review. So Lisa also brought in like the old carved wood signs that you used to see on buildings. That now can be done out of some sort of composite foam or whatever, and then it's actually hand painted. And so that's a newer technology that's a lot less expensive, but you can still obtain the same look and feel, which maintains the character of the district. And that's all we're looking to do, is to maintain the character. So I think this language addresses any concern about excluding any type of material.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ward? No? Oh, Valerie.
Yeah, I had my question, and I think I lost it because I've been thumbing through all this stuff here. But my question goes back to probably explaining to me the difference between how the demolition review changed. Because I know that was what Nathan was most concerned about, was that by having the Historical Commission be able to deny a demolition, that made it much more stringent than any of the other historic districts in the state.
There are other historic commissions in Oregon that have denial right. Basically, the Historic Commission serves in place. We are the same type of body as the Urban Area Planning Commission. We're quasi-judicial, and so we do pretty much the almost identical thing that the Planning Commission does, only just for the historic district and for landmark buildings. So we serve that same function, and just like the Planning Commission and the Council typically have, approval with conditions, delay or denial, we are just asking for that same option of denial. If it was not appealable to the Council, then I would say I understand the concern. However, the Council is the final arbiter, and so if we deny, we've had 2 applications for demolition come to us in the last few years, and in both cases we willingly approved them, demolition of 4 buildings, and so because the property owner had a good reason. The only thing that this will do is kind of raises a caution flag. If we deny it, we have several business and property owners on the commission, so we're very flexible, we're very pro-business, we're very pro-property rights, but if we would deny, that would mean we're raising a yellow flag that the Council needs to see. What is it about this building? I mean, maybe it is a very significant building in the history of Grants Pass, but maybe it's in really bad condition, as was the building that Nathan purchased. And so we totally went along with it because it didn't make sense in that situation. Or the other one was on the Forest Service compound, and they wanted to demolish 3 buildings there. And again, we went along with that because they said we're going to preserve the main building and use it as a gathering place or whatever. So denial would only be the same option that the Planning Commission has and the Council has, and if the applicant has a problem, if we deny, they come to the Council, but you'll be able to see where your advisory committee there, and you'd be able to see what our reasons for denial were. And I can tell you, we would have to have some really strong reasons in order to exercise that option, but then you could overturn it.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions? No? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue? Please come forward and introduce yourself. Make sure the mic's on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Mayor and City Council, I have inserted on your desk or your calendar there a handout. If you'd like to follow along with me, you can so do. I'm going to take you down a walking memory lane in the historical district. Having grown up in the southwest area of Grants Pass, I remember the years of many taverns on G Street, Tiny's Fish Market, the bakery, hotels, city market, Starfeed Seed, and the railroad freight depot, which changed to the Caveman Plaza, and those buildings that were demolished during the mid-century modern era. Some of these buildings, if still standing, would be so interesting and beautiful with an architectural, ornate Art Deco design and of great value to the city, the historical district, and to generations that follow. Thinking of the historical buildings throughout Europe that attract so many and their importance to all, their old world architectural and craftsmanship will never be captured in today's world of design. Mid-century aesthetics moved away from ornamentation, and older brick buildings were covered up, including Hart Jewelers building and the Golden Rule Plaza. We lost a great bank building during the movement, U.S. National on the corner of 6th and G. The Opera House building, built in 1885, opening in 1891, which housed traveling performances to the area. The State Theater opened in the Opera House in 1929, since movies became the entertainment venue of the times. The theater operated into the early 1950s, with the interior remaining its beautiful early design. I remember going there with my father to see a live stage performance from a traveling company. This was very impressive to a young child, and then the entire block was demolished in 1956. There were beautiful brick buildings, one housing Demery's bookstore, an ice cream parlor, and Wright's music store. Today we see a mid-century Wells Fargo on the corner, where the Opera House once stood, and a parking lot. While strolling around the Grants Pass district, have you ever stopped to look at the artistry behind the architecture? Some of these buildings were built before the turn of the century, and as a testament to time have survived fires, wartime, economics, depressions, and now pandemics. I'm almost through. Along with growing pains and city expansions. From the early days of the railroad through the emergence of the Pacific Highway, the evolution of downtown's historic district can be seen in its buildings, and the ones that remain standing today continue to tell their stories if their walls could only talk. And I have attached to the back a copy of the Opera House, which I spoke about, and then also the U.S. National Bank, which was on the corner of 6th and G.
Thank you. We have a lot of good history. It takes a few extra seconds.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Are there any questions, or?
No, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue? Arden?
Well, it's nice to see you again. It's always fun to be here. So I'm passing these out so you can read along with me. And I wrote this out because I didn't want to miss anything. So that helps. Okay. So this is a little history of history, I guess you'd say. This is a little history. About 40 years ago, in 1981, a handful of locals, including the mayor, saw their city losing vintage buildings right and left, and realized the loss could be devastating to their hometown. They struggled to find a way to save the only heritage buildings left from the turn of the century. And many of those had traveled, and they saw firsthand the draw of tourism to antiquity and the money it generated. The group saw an opportunity to create a virtual gold mine in the heart of Grants Pass with its authentic historic buildings. And they knew it was important to save the city's history, much like the East Coast. They knew it could become a booming tourist attraction if only the buildings could just be saved. So we need to thank them for that. So turn over page. So they got together again in the early 90s, and with the help of the city and a historic preservation consultant, the small G Street Historic District was formally recognized. And lo and behold, the Historical Building and Sites Commission was born. Its purpose is to preserve historic properties and sites related to the history of Grants Pass and encourage heritage tourism. 2014-15, the commission took steps to expand the historic district, preserving more of our historic buildings for the future. Now, busloads of tourists can relish and delight in authentic old-time structures along with the locals. So each notable building that we see in Grants Pass every day from living here has a story. And once it's demolished, it's gone forever. And there is one of those original people in 1981 here tonight that was part of the group that got all of that going for us and for the future. Can you guess who that is? Anybody want to venture a guess? It was Ward Warren from 1981 has been a major force in preserving Grants Pass, and we have all of those fellows who got together and saw the value and did something about it need to be thanked. So I am a member of the Historical Building and Sites Commission and love it and have fun with it, and I'm proud of it, and I just wanted to share this history with you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Just one?
We normally don't ask questions during a public hearing, but thank you.
Okay.
Is
thank
there
you.
anyone else here? All right, with that, we will close the public comment portion and open it up to council for discussion. Joel.
Well, one of the things I think that we all realize is, and we see examples of it down south in Jacksonville, there is a lot of value to preserving our culture and our history. And we're not necessarily very good at it in the Western world or in North America. But it is an economic thing, it's a history thing, it's an honoring thing. In terms of the demolition, it doesn't prohibit demolition. I think that was adequately demonstrated this last year. There'll be some buildings, I'm sure, that are going to have to be demolished, over the next 200 years or next 10 years or whatever. So that has to be a reality. This just puts in a little different process if people want to go that route. And there's appeals that they can have if they disagree with the decision. So I like Jacksonville. I like our downtown. I think it's worthwhile.
Thank you. Rick?
I appreciate the comments that Ward Warren made, and I feel he addressed some of my concerns. And with that, I would like to make a motion for the council to consider and see if they would be willing to move that direction. So I would move to adopt the ordinance amending Development Code Article 4, Development Code Amendments and Criteria 7, Hearing Bodies and Review Authority, Article 13, Special Districts, Purpose Districts, and with 2 amendments. And the amendments would include on page 178, which is Section 13453C III, vinyl and former plastics and composite materials. Again, those would be reviewed by Historic Building and Site Committee. And then the second amendment, which would be on page 180, that would be same section, 1345364. Under glass, where it said add vinyl, plastics, and other forms may be composite if acceptable, as required by Historic Building and Sites Committee. And with those two amendments, have it read by title only, first reading.
Rick, did you want to also include and/or would under number 5 at the top of page 180?
Yes.
Okay, so actually 3 small amendments. The and/or would was under set number 5B. Preferred materials are canvas or metal and/or wood.
Would, correct. Sorry. Yes, 3 items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Rob. All right, discussion on the motion? Vanessa?
I would like some clarification for section 6, number 4. I believe the wording from Ward was vinyl plastics and foam may be acceptable, but may require a review, and the motion uses the term, but would require a review, so I would like some clarification on that.
That, I think you're just referring to what Rick had just said.
That would be fine. I don't know. I didn't take shorthand, so I didn't write
I'll tell you what I wrote down was vinyl, plastics, or foam and other composite materials may be acceptable, but would require review. Is
Okay.
that what you have?
I have may require a review,
Okay.
may and would. That's really what I'm focused on here. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That's acceptable.
okay. And Rob, do you agree that that's acceptable language? Okay. Further discussion? Valerie?
Well, I want to thank Ward. You did make me feel better about the knowing and seeing it in the perspective of knowing that it can be appealed to the council and that it's just a process that you're taking the place of the UAPC. So that helped give me some clarification there. And I do hope that this will allow more grants and availability. My only problem, I love our downtown and I do want to treasure it, but I also know that a lot of the upstairs need a lot of work because of the age of those buildings, and that's been one of our frustrations, is the inability to get housing in some of those buildings because of the fire code and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that by becoming a CLG, that might also allow us to get more grants, so that is a possibility. So on the basis of that, I think I will support it.
Rob?
Yeah, I'd like to, I appreciate that, Valerie, but I just wanted to clarify a little bit more when you had asked earlier about why demolition a denial is even needed. In February, I actually thought this, and I checked with Brad, that right now, any building in the historic district could be demolished, and there would be no trigger for the council to even know about it. Just like any building outside the historic district, anywhere in the city, could be demolished, and it's not like it comes in front of the council. So basically, right now, the demolition is kind of in the hands of developers or someone who's trying to convert a building, and they may or may not have an appreciation for what the historic district means to Grants Pass. So a denial option would basically just ensure that it comes to the council. The council would then be aware before we went downtown one day and said, boy, that used to be, there's a hole in the block right there. What happened? Well, the council would be appraised before that could ever happen. So that's really why the denial kind of needs to be there. Other cities, there are plenty of other cities, and Joel mentioned Jacksonville, they have a denial option. And there's plenty of other cities with denial options. There's some cities that have delay options that are so long that there might as well be a denial. They can go on for years, and they ask people to the properties have to be put up for sale and so on and so forth. But it's just one more tool that the historic building sites would have to be able to work with the council, and the main thing I think Ward said too is the council would then be able to look at all the reasons why
they thought it should be denied. And then the council's making an educated decision, or an informed decision. And I just wanted to add also that, I'm from the East Coast, and the East Coast, people, quite frankly, value historical buildings a lot more than they do on the West Coast. I mean, one of my brothers lives in Plymouth, Mass., and, they have nearly 500-year-old buildings there. And it's kind of cool to see them. The mansions in Newport, Rhode Island are absolutely mind-boggling. You can actually just Google them and check them out, but they are such a draw, and it's just an amazing draw. And that's kind of the norm there, and out here, it's taken conscious effort for people to see the value in the historic areas. And so that's really the CLG is really, part of it. I think we all kind of know that's a no-brainer. We all want to be able to, whether it's for historic street signs or historic street lamps or anything like that. And what appeals to me even the most is the possibility of consulting, free consulting for these kinds of projects. That really appeals to me. But as far as the denial goes, it's just basically tapping the brakes and giving the council an intelligently put together list of reasons why they need to really look at something carefully before a building just disappears because the developer wanted to get rid of it without really the council ever even finding out about it. So that kind of explained to me why the demolition denial is really, would be a great tool for our city and the council to have.
Thank you. Are there other comments? All right, the motion on the table is to adopt the ordinance that would amend Development Code Article 4, Article 7, and Article 13, along with 3 on-the-fly amendments here this evening. Rick, you're up. How do you vote?
I just want to preface that I really appreciate Ward Warren responding to the concerns, and I vote yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. Next up, we have another legislative hearing. Thanks to our Historic Preservation Committee members for being here.
So that's we need to do a second reading.
Oh, you're right, we did pass it unanimously. Actually, and we need to do the first reading.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me tonight.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending Development Code Article 4, Development Code Amendments and Criteria, Article 7, Hearing Bodies and Review Authority, and Article 13, Special Purpose Districts as amended.
Thank you. Do we want to continue on with the second reading? Who's going to make the motion? Valerie?
I'll make a motion that dittos the first motion that Rick made. I don't think I can get all those amendments in there, but with the 3 detailed amendments.
Quick question to Mark. Is it okay to do the second reading even though we don't have the exact language written in this? Okay. So
We
Valerie
all
has the
agreed on what the verbal amendment was.
Okay.
Is it okay?
It's okay.
Okay.
Yep. Valerie had the motion. Is there a second for the second reading with Brian? Okay. Any discussion? Nope. Okay. Let's vote. Valerie on the second reading.
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Thank you. Karen?
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending Development Code Article 4, Development Code Amendments and Criteria, Article 7, Hearing Bodies and Review Authority, and Article 13, Special Purpose Districts as amended.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we will move on to another legislative hearing. And I've been told that I get to read the admonishments again quickly. At this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an ordinance amending Development Code Article 12, Zoning Districts, Article 19, Site Plan Review, and Article 22, Residential Development Standards. We'll begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by public comment. and then the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to consider this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria. All testimony and evidence must be directed toward those criteria. The criteria which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. It's important to remember that if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. We will now begin the hearing with the staff report. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. You're getting a lot of development code amendments thrown at you the last while. My hats go off to you for getting through this. This is a fairly substantial one. I'm going to go through the highlights from the Urban Planning Commission recommendation that they made to you. But given your discussion on Monday at your workshop about having the opportunity to review in workshops some of these text amendments, I do acknowledge that this one has moved through the process since late 2018, and my understanding is it hadn't come to you, so I guess I just put that up front that if because it's legislative, there is not a 120-day timeline. It could be continued if you would like to have more time to review some of this material. But adoption of this would amend 3 different articles: zoning districts, number 12, site plan review, number 19, and residential development standards, article 22, to bring the Grants Pass Code into greater alignment with the state of Oregon clear and objective housing standards, and to remove existing solar standards, as well as a few other residential-oriented standards. The relationship to council goals to support and facilitate sustainable manageable growth by amending the code to remain current with Oregon legislation. So on March 10th, the Urban Area Planning Commission held their public hearing. They did not have any public attend that. They did close the hearing on that night, and then they adopted findings of fact at their next meeting on March 24th. Those findings of fact are included in your thick packet tonight. A little bit more on the background on why this is and what's meant by the state's language, clear and objective standards. ORS 197.303 requires needed housing inside urban growth boundaries if you have a city that's 2,500 people or more. And then ORS 197.307 builds on that and requires those cities to adopt clear and objective standards regulating housing. They also have regulations that may include one or more provisions regulating the density or height of a development, and the regulations may not have the effect of discouraging needed housing through unreasonable cost or delay. So that's reasonably recent legislation. As you may have read into this, if you read the material, kind of the point being, if you're a developer and you're doing housing, particularly given the housing needs around the state, the point of legislation was to streamline, to make it much more clear upfront before you get into any kind of meeting with a city, what exactly are the standards that you build to in order to get approved. And that kind of is the underlying point of this, clear and objective, so that you don't have to do any guesswork about if I want to come in with a 6-plex, this is what's needed. So that kind of what was driving some of that legislation. In response to that, the city in 2017 did sign a no-cost memorandum of understanding with the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development to hire Siegel Planning Services. They did a complete code audit and drafted a code amendment with that ORS in mind. And the goals of that MOU, there were several of them, but here's the kind of the main 3: to provide or enhance a clear and objective approval path for needed housing, remove or amend criteria that hinder development of needed housing, and then to update permitted use lists and development standards to ensure the mix and density of housing can accommodate needed housing. Siegel completed that work, and then they submitted the final draft amendments to the city in early 2019. There's a little bit more background in your packets that mentions because of staffing issues, that was kind of the reason for the delay. That's why there's that delay between when Siegel completed their work and when it went to the Planning Commission. So the next couple of slides address where single-family duplexes and manufactured homes can be built. This piece was, just to be clear, was not a part of the Siegel planning report to the city. This was a follow-up that staff did internally, and because we were already moving this amendment through, we wanted to put it before you. So what this does, bottom line, is it takes away the opportunity to build single-family, this third line, detached housing here. Single detached, one refers to the number of units. So one detached single-family house in the general commercial zone and in the GC2 zone strikes those. It does allow you to do accessory dwelling units if you already have housing in the general commercial zone. And then the same applies for detached 2 units and then attached 2 units, which are basically duplexes. And then manufactured housing, the same. So let me just skip to the next slide to show you kind of what's driving this. So we have about 934 acres of general commercial zone. 780 or so is developed out entirely. There's about 20 acres that's constrained or not buildable, and about 134 acres, and this was 2008. Unfortunately, we didn't come up with an updated number that takes quite a bit of analysis. That's 134 acres of vacant or partially vacant land that's in the general commercial zone. So of the total that's there today, we have about 145 acres that's occupied with either single-family duplex or manufactured residential housing. All of this orange boundary here is the general commercial zone in the city. And then here is what's south of the river. This is an example along Rogue River Highway. The yellow and the purple and the blue represent where you have today already built out single-family housing or duplexes or manufactured. And again, the orange is the general commercial zone. So as I mentioned, there's about 145 acres that's built out in that area with single-family housing or duplex or manufactured. That's from an economic development standpoint, to continue to use up general commercial land for single-family housing challenges, at least it could challenge the opportunity to have that land protected for commercial uses, at least at the historical rate that it's been being used for single-family. So that in essence is what that Article 12 amendment does. And we can go into more detail if you'd like. The staff report gives a little bit more background and justification. So there's 2 other articles that have amendments. 19, this deals with when site plan reviews are required for housing, and it exempts certain development from a separate site plan review. So as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the goals of clear and objective standards is to streamline. And this changes our code so that if you come in with certain types of single-family or duplex or ADUs, you are exempt from development from a separate site plan review. We actually already do that, but this clarifies in the code what that is. It also updates the composition of our site plan review committee. This is more of a kind of a cleanup thing. It changes some position names. It increases the number of residential projects that qualify for minor site plan review. Those are a little shorter timeframes versus major site plan reviews. And then it does require major site plan reviews. If you have a project that has a waiver or a variance, it makes it clear that you wouldn't be able to streamline on those. You're still going to have to, go through. If you're coming in with a project that is, exceeding that height, or you have other kind of waivers that are involved with your project, you would still have to go through the standard review process. So that was 19, dealing with the kind of the process. Now Article 22. So this is the article that gets into the very specific design guidelines for residential units. The screen shows the specific sections, and they really all deal with the multi-dwellings. So we're talking about projects that have 5 units or more. When we say multi-dwelling, we're talking about 5 units or more. So fourplexes, triplexes are not going to be subject to any of these. There's 2 different kind of categories in here, guidelines, and those are sort of foundational design principles. Those are intended to communicate the intent of the ordinance. So if you're an architect and you're designing new housing in the city of Grants Pass, this kind of gives you some guidelines. It also helps staff to interpret those applications. And then there are standards. Those are specific review standards. Those have more regulatory criteria on them. The main sections in Article 22 that we're talking about changing are the open space, landscaping, parking, site access and circulation, and the building mass and facade design. We, in our current code, already have all these sections. This is kind of going into more detail. It's changing and modifying some of those. This is an example of a graphic that is in the code. It just kind of calls out the difference between private open space and common open space. This code attempts to, well, it doesn't attempt, I think it does a pretty good job of being clear about what's the difference there, so that okay, a private open space example would be like a patio on the back of your your fourplex. The common open space would be that area like a playground for all the kids or something in that area. There might also be a pool. There might also be, another open space area for volleyball or something that everybody has access to. So those are defined in there. It does say that 30% of the gross area designated and permanently reserved as common open space. Our current code requires recreational open space and pervious open space. It kind of divides those, and it has similar percentages in the current code, but it defines them different. So here is what is proposed. If you have 5 to 10 units, you have a minimum open space area of 500 square feet, and you have some specific dimensions that are involved with that. And then if you come in with a project that's 11 to 20 units, it's 750 square feet of open space area, again with a minimum horizontal dimension of 25 feet. That's to try to prevent some kind of odd-shaped open space that's completely unusable. And then if you have more than 20, it's 1,000 square feet plus an additional 250. Again, that's for the common areas. The code also goes into some more specifics about the design and variations on the setbacks. And again, many of these are currently in the code. This goes into more detail so that it is understandable what those dimensions are and takes away sort of that subjective review. Another key piece of this amendment is the solar standards. Right now, there's a substantial detailed section in the code that requires solar setbacks It talks about how you have to orient your houses, how you have to orient your lots in order to achieve that. The consultant, when they reviewed the code, felt that it was outdated, that we can actually achieve many of those solar standards through the current code, that energy code changes that have taken place since the 80s when a lot of these solar standards were popular are also assisting with more efficient buildings. We have had a number of variances to the solar ordinance that we have. So with those points in mind, the Planning Commission did support removing the solar section of the ordinance in its entirety. And then finally, in Article 22, the accessory dwelling units, there is a parking exemption in there that basically brings us into compliance with ORS 197-312, which says that cities in Oregon cannot mandate an off-street parking space if you have an accessory dwelling unit. So currently, there's one space required. So this would basically remove that to bring us into compliance with the statute. So again, for development code text amendments, we have these 4 requirements: that they're consistent with the purpose of the article that you're amending, that they're consistent with other provisions of the code, that they're consistent with the comp plan, and they're consistent with the standards of the transportation facilities identified in the transportation system plan. That analysis was in the staff report and was found to be compliant. And then your call to action is there to take the testimony and then to deliberate, and it's a legislative matter, so as I mentioned, there's no mandatory deadline.
Thank you, Brad. Do we have any questions? DJ.
So it mentions here in the background that the Housing Advisory Committee as well as the UAPC had an opportunity to look at this and provided comments. I don't see any comments from the Housing Advisory Committee. Do you know if they had comments and what happened from that review?
Laura told me that that was brought to the HAC just before I came on, that there was several weeks that was provided to them, that there wasn't any comments on that from HAC at that time.
Rick.
Thank you, Brad. Could you go back to the chart that shows the zoning and the different permitted uses? And it's shown on page 220 of our report. Okay, down below there, when you talk about duplex use, I just need some clarification. So if I have 2 acres of general commercial and I want to do a duplex subdivision with, say, 10 units in there, under this, I'm no longer able to do duplex subdivision?
For new development, that's correct, as it's proposed to you, right?
So
the general commercial zone would be reserved for only triplexes or above, or other mixed use kinds of projects.
So if I reclassified the design of my duplexes to be townhouses, would they qualify?
The townhouses are for the most part falling under 4 here: attached 2 units or attached three units. If you had a townhouse like some of those historic brownstones or what that have more than 2 attached, then yes, they would be permitted. But if you only had, you could technically have 2 townhouses only, and then detach, and then 2 more, and then detach. Those would be not permitted in the general commercial zone. So it's setting the threshold at 3 units or more in order to be permitted.
Okay, I like the intent of the ordinance of providing more density and more housing. I'm just want to make sure that if somebody comes in and they have a design if they're meeting the density, that they can still go forward. And that's why I'm asking the questions, so thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I have a question about the solar section, and I just want to make sure that I understand what we would be removing. It talks about guidelines regarding the orientation of dwellings, and then one part that I think might be concerning, but I just want to get clarification, is that there's a lot in there about solar setbacks. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that regulates essentially, one property having the ability to not cast too much shade on another property. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, the objective is to try to protect, particularly if you're in a north-south orientation, those lots that would be south, so that they would have the capability of installing solar.
Okay, so by removing this, we would remove that protection.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? DJ?
So adding on to that, the solar setbacks, you mentioned there's some modern codes that are recommended that are going to sort of replace those antiquated solar setbacks. Can you talk about those? Different setback requirements, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't have any really good specific pieces to bring to you. I don't think by what I intended to say was that the energy code, from an energy efficiency standpoint, those have been in place for several years now, are what in place. That really, to my knowledge, there are not any new, solar-oriented standards, other than the fact that the technology has come to a point where they can store power in a more efficient way, and don't need quite as much of that exposure.
Any other questions? Valerie?
Yeah, I just have a clarification. So basically, if, say, there's a single-family house now in this general commercial area, because there are a lot of them older ones, and they take it down, do they have to build back up more than a duplex? Is that
No.
Okay.
No, and thank you for that clarification. Yeah. No, if you have a single-family house or a duplex today and your property is zoned general commercial, and it burns down or you have some other need to replace it, this protects that right entirely.
But if it sells, the next person would have to do, is that how it works? I mean, I don't know how that works, whether it changes over when there's a new owner to that piece of property?
No, the way that the footnote in Article 12 is worded, it kind of protects the right to continue with that non-conforming use. In an ideal world, we would go back and rezone those properties that have the 145 acres of general commercial that are single family and duplex to a residential zone. But it's kind of for another day. Right now, they're permitted uses. They would continue to be allowed uses even though the code would change.
Other questions for staff? Nope, we're all
Thank you.
questioned out. Thank you, Brad. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this issue? No. All right, we'll close that portion and move on to council discussion. Council, DJ.
So I just wanted to address the Article 12 first. So I understand that staff's concerned about the availability of general commercial, but we have to also consider that the market will balance the demand for general commercial eventually, and I don't think we've necessarily realized that point yet, but it's a good point. Also, we have a shortage of available residential land combined with some minimum density requirements coming through eventually, makes me really concerned about prohibiting single-family duplex or manufactured home usage on general commercial. My other concern with this is a substantive and substantial document. It's the reason why our packet is inches thick, and I've digested this material over the past couple years. It's probably new to a lot of people on this dais, and I have concern about adopting these kind of ordinance without understanding the full breadth of information involved. So I would just cautionary tale to really understand. As I mentioned before, this is substantial and substantive, and it's important to understand it in its entirety. So those are my general concerns.
Other comments? Valerie?
Okay, I understand that this is kind of the beginning, in a sense, of the density discussion. I mean, which is a discussion that we have been having for a long time, and the fact that we do need to address it. So I know that the Housing Advisory Committee is also going to come to us with more density issues, if I'm not mistaken, and those are going to be in like in particular zoning. Is that what they're coming? And to me, those seem a little bit more painful than this does. So I don't know, I'd just like your information and your input, because you are the builder and you do know that world better than myself. So how would you compare that with what we're looking at here?
Sure. Well, my concern on a superficial level would be that a minimum density proposing in certain zones is going to be the bulk of that preventing sort of single-family utilization. Adding on top of eliminating single-family utilization in general commercial is kind of icing that bulk to add another layer of already stacking on top of the limited availability that we currently have for developing single-family. So if you combine these two together, it causes me some concern. So what I'd really like to see is what actually comes through the housing advisory, and then that HB 2003 housing needs analysis that we're going to be getting here really soon before we start making substantial changes to zoning. But I also have to add that it's my opinion that I don't think that general commercial has quite narrowed down to that alarming level of utilization for residential. We are at the point where we need to be aware of its utilization, sure, but are we quite there where we need to make this change? It's my opinion that no, we are not.
Other comment? Brian?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate my concern about the Article 22 solar standards being removed. I think that there could be situations that arise from that where one tax lot builds a dwelling that completely shades the adjacent tax lot, which is not something that we want to do. This was instituted in the early 1980s as a tool for energy efficient developments. I understand that we're probably not going to get a lot of energy efficient developments given our current situation here in town, but I do think that the solar setback requirement is valuable for our community.
Vanessa?
On the contrary to what Councillor Fazer had said about concerns for Article 12, I did want to outline that on March 30th of this year, 3J Consultants, in partnership with our Community Development Department, notified through our housing needs analysis and our buildable lands inventory that we do have enough buildable land for all housing types, if that buildable land that we do have is utilized as necessary. So I don't think that the Article 12 necessarily meets the concerns that you have just because of that information that those consultants gave to us, and this just preserves that general commercial land.
Rick?
I like some of the comments that are here, but I'm a little bit uneasy in that just a verbal response at the Housing committee looked at this, but we don't have an official documentation. And I guess I would think it would be appropriate, no matter which committee it is, if they're going to issue or take a stand on the position of a proposal, that we have two things. One, are they in favor or against it, or being neutral? And then the reason for their decision, so we know their justification why they are taking that position. I would welcome that information.
Thank you. Brian?
I would second what Rick said. I would like to get a documented opinion from Housing Advisory.
All right. I'm seeing some other nods. Doesn't sound like anyone's interested in making a motion on this tonight. Would you like to continue it pending recommendation from the Housing Advisory Committee? We do have, yes? All right. Do we need a motion to do that?
I recommend a motion and a time and date certain.
The time and date certain might be challenging. We'd have to presume that they'll be available to talk about this at their next meeting, which would be the next May 19th, I believe. And then a meeting after that. So just, if we do a date certain, I'm sure we could move it to a date again certain after. But it's presumptuous that they're going to be able to talk about it at their next meeting, is all I'm saying.
Certainly move it to a date certain, and if you don't have all the required information at that point, it could be further extended into another date certain.
Somebody want to make a motion? Valerie?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that this be referred to the Housing Advisory Committee to look at and give us their input, and then return it to the council in what, I don't know if we have to give a date, June or?
June, if it was June, it'd be June 2nd or June 16th.
June 16th. Yeah. That gives May, anyway.
Okay, second from Joel? Okay, further discussion on the motion? All right, we have a motion to postpone this with referring it to the Housing Advisory Committee to come back to us June 16th. Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will see that one again in a couple months. Next up, council action item to discuss a resolution adjusting the bulk water rate in the comprehensive fee schedule. And it looks like Jason Kennedy from Public Works is here to talk to us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have a very brief presentation for you on the bulk water rate discussion. Subject in summary is to discuss the bulk water rates and talk about our rate, our neighboring community rates, and the cost to operate the bulk facility, as well as the impact of bulk water to our system. The relationship to your council goals is to maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet the community's needs. So as a little bit of background, the city has provided bulk water in some capacity for more than 20 years. It is a very valuable commodity, especially to our contracting community, especially this time of year and when construction is very, very busy. Bulk water is required for dust control on almost every construction site around the city, as well as a key component in demolition to keep dust down. It has traditionally been provided only to contractors at construction sites for the purpose of providing dust control. However, we did build an initial fill station, and that was located at the Hillcrest Fire Station. And as you recall from our previous conversations, that was an honor-based system where folks would fill out a slip and put it in a can when they came and filled up their trucks, and we would bill them based on those slips. It was pretty decent, but I'm sure that there was a fair amount of generous filling. When that fire station was renovated, however, we did move to a new system at the New Hope pump station, which was south of the river, and that was a new coin and bill operated system, and it was much more effective at keeping track of the water that was sold. However, as that use started to increase, it was very difficult for us to keep up with the coins and the bills that were being put into the machine. It also created some challenges with staffing, having to send 2 people out to handle that cash all the time, just as a traditional financial control. So in 2016, council did authorize that system be upgraded. So now we collect no cash at our bulk water sites. Users pay at our customer service office right here in town, or they can actually go online and add money to their account by themselves. It's a great system. We also have a much better tracking system, and we're able to track that use by each individual customer. So prior to 2017, our bulk water sales have been very, very flat. But as you can see from the trend behind me, that has changed in the last few years, and now bulk water sales do represent a fairly significant volume of our water sales. And when I say significant, it does still only represent a couple of percent. So it's not a detail, but when we're used to seeing 0.5% or 0.2%, to be looking at 2.8% just this year, year to date of water sales, that is a significant number. So that is why council asked me to come back with the thought of potentially looking at an additional rate. The cost implication for adopting a rate is none. We would recognize some additional revenue. Council did suggest at the last meeting a possible rate of $12 per 1,000 gallons as a rate to consider. And that is the rate that we did bring back to you in your packet. What I have behind me is a list of all of our neighboring community rates. And you can see that they range from $1.25 per 1,000 gallons in nearby Medford to $30 per 1,000 gallons in the city of Cave Junction. So we would be firmly at the topper end, but not completely so. Our current rate is $6.50 per 1,000. With that, I do have a call to action as tonight, but it is at your discretion exclusively. Your alternatives are we could postpone this until a later date. We can adopt the resolution amending the comprehensive fee schedule to reflect a new rate of $12 per 1,000 gallons. We could also adopt a resolution amending the comprehensive fee at a rate other than $12 per 1,000, or make no adjustments to the rates at all. And with that, I would take any questions.
Thanks, Jason. Do we have any questions for Jason? Rick?
Thank you, Jason. In the resolution that's included in the packet has a beginning billing date if it were accepted as of June 1st.
Yeah.
Is it also possible to move it up to May 1st?
I would have to ask Mark. I don't know. I thought that it was 30 days after an adopted resolution that it became effective.
That's for ordinances,
okay.
unless they're emergencies.
Got it. So then, yes, it could be moved up.
Any other questions? All righty, thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Is there any public here to speak on this issue? No? All right, we'll open it up to council discussion. DJ, then Brian?
So it was kind of recommended and moved forward that we do to 12%. I think it's 46% increase. It seems like it's reaching a little bit. Our usage is going way up, and responding with a approximately 50% increase seems like it's reaching, but that's just my general sentiment. I'd like to know what everybody else thinks about the rate.
Brian?
Given the fact that it's the use is going up so much, I feel like a significant increase is warranted. And in a year or two, if we look and see that we've gone up too much, and for some reason it's really it's really snubbing demand, we can always adjust it again.
Valerie?
Well, when the conversation was around last time, I was thinking in the back of my head, just going up to 10 cents to me seemed a high, but when I went out and talked with people about it and asked them, I was surprised that most of them said, no, make it 12. I mean, I was surprised that there was this much support for going up to 12 as there was out there. So, like I said, to me, it kind of seemed a little high too. And I know it's going to cost somebody down the line because the price of something will go up as a result of that sort of increase on water. And I'm just hoping that we have all the water we need this summer. That's my worry too. But it's a pretty precious commodity at the same time. So if it can help us, in, especially we're looking towards a water treatment plant. I guess that's saying it's them putting in their money as well.
Thank you. Rick, did you have something? No. Brian?
I would make a motion to adopt the resolution adjusting the bulk water rate in the comprehensive fee schedule to $12 per 1,000 gallons with the amendment that it be effective as of May 1st, 2021.
Yeah, we already went by public. Nobody was here to speak on it. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second from Rick. Discussion on the motion? All right, Brian, you're up.
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll be adjusting those rates. Next up, we're to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Beeler Excavation LLC for vegetation management of open spaces. And Jason, are you also our presenter on that one?
I am, but my presentation isn't open, so I will open that shortly and be right with you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Again, a very brief presentation for you. This is on vegetative management of our open space. And the subject in summary is this is a contract to issue a 5-year, or agreement to issue a 5-year contract for the management of our open space, which is currently under the responsibility of our facilities management group. And this was on your consent agenda and was asked to be removed for a brief presentation. The relationship to your council goals are to maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet the community needs, and then also providing cooperative shared leadership involving council staff in the community. So a little bit of background, the city's facility management group has been responsible for maintaining all of our vacant properties, which comprises a little over 94 acres. It's a fairly significant amount of property. The properties are primarily park reserve lands, plus the Foothill landfill property. And those properties require a variety of maintenance needs, including rough mowing, weed eating, brush control, and to ensure that they are maintained within our city codes. I have a list of the properties, but I also gave you a handout of what we included in the RFP, which delineates all of the properties, including what work needed to be done when. It is a very extensive list of work. In June of 2020, the city's PAVE committee completed an assessment of the facilities group, and it identified several deficiencies. In fall of 2020, the facilities group was moved under Public Works. Manager Kubik at that time recognized that Public Works was used to working with facilities. It was a very good fit to move the facilities group there. Since that time, we have been working to implement those PAVE recommendations, as well as look at what needed to be done to make the department more efficient. Those recommendations made by that group were broken into 3 categories: critical, necessary, and desirable. Those critical ones are the ones that we need to do right now because we are not effectively operating. The necessary ones are the ones that we should get to in a few years, and those desirable are kind of those longer range 5-10-year goals that are out there. One of the critical recommendations from that report was looking at the delivery of services for 3 programs: downtown services, flower basket program, and undeveloped properties. One task that we spent quite a bit of work on is maintaining open space. In the PAVE report, they identified about 1,300 hours per year in maintaining open space alone. That's half a person per year. It's a significant amount of time. So to us in Public Works, contracting this service out makes a lot of good sense. There are people out there with equipment and skills that are far better at this than we are. Let's contract that out. So a request for proposals was advertised in March of 2021, and we received 0 bids. So we advertised it again, and we did receive several proposals. They were due back on April 1st, and then the proposals received were evaluated not just on cost alone. They were evaluated for the company's capabilities, the company's qualifications, and the cost of their service. As you can see, the capabilities and qualifications, they wouldn't sway it a lot, but it was important that we didn't just hire somebody that went and bought a tractor to try and come and get our work. We wanted somebody that had a proven track record. We wanted somebody who had the capabilities and the staff to be able to address this, because when our grass starts to grow or we have weeds, we need to get somebody out there to get that knocked down right away, and we need it done very well. Beeler Excavation was selected through the process. They were the lowest cost, but they also had exceptional capabilities, and they were very well qualified to perform that work, and in fact had performed the work for us in previous years. So the cost implication, the cost of the service is $31,175 per year. However, this is a 5-year agreement, so the amount that they would be eligible for is more significant than that. However, the pricing is based on servicing the sites 5 times per year. If a site is only serviced 3 times per year, then the city would not be billed for those 2 services that we had not received. So it may not be the full $31,175 per year, but to make it an even bidding field, we told everybody that they had to bid at least 5 services per year. Some of these, as you think about it, where it's brush and not primarily grass, we may be only out there once per year, and so those costs will be less. Funds are budgeted within the facilities management O&M budget that you will be evaluating this upcoming budget season. And this contract does free up staff to perform much more critical work, such as maintaining this facility and our other facilities, which is what was identified in the PAVE report. So we do have a call to action slated as today, but it can be delayed at your discretion. The alternatives are there before you. We do feel that this is a very good use of our resources and does allow our staff to really focus on those facilities maintenance tasks that we really need them to be doing. And with that, I would take any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Jason? Guess you covered it. Thank you, Jason. And do we have anybody from the public who wants to speak on this? Nope, we don't. Council discussion, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Jason for putting that together, as I was the one that pulled it off the consent agenda, and I'm satisfied with what I've heard. Thanks.
Thank
and
you.
I would go ahead and move to adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Beeler Excavation LLC for vegetation management of open spaces.
Thank you. Is there a second? Rick with the second. Discussion?
I just had one quick discussion, Mayor. I just applaud the use of contracting resources rather than hiring additional staff for this type of work. And it's very cost effective and very effective. So, and it leverages the employees, the city employees, so that they can do even better work.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. Brian, you're up.
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
CJ?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item for the council. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not two individuals. Council may consider items brought up during this time later in our agenda during matters from mayor, council, and staff. The meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. And if you have a question regarding any government-provided service or a current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. We have 2 people waiting to speak to us tonight. First up, Travis Palmerton. You can come up together if you want. James.
Well, one goes, the other goes, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Travis Palmerton. I am the president of the Grants Pass Active Club. This is our longtime member, James Lowe, past president as well. We want to thank the Grants Pass City Council for your continued partnership with the Grants Pass Active Club and for working with us to support the youth of our community. We are here tonight to give the city an update on where the Active Club is on the Boatnik Festival. We have all of our permits submitted and returned from ODOT, BLM, and the APBA, which is governs the boats. The Active Club is requesting a discussion on our permit process with the city as soon as possible and what the city would be able to do. This is in order so that we can let vendors such as Davis Shows, which is the carnival holder, know what's possible to happen. This way that if they need to make other arrangements to go to other events during that weekend, they can do that. And we are working extensively on a COVID safety protocol plan as we speak, and we'd like to provide that possibly at your soonest workshop. Anything to add to that, James?
You bet. So what,
Please step up to the mic because the television doesn't record it if you don't speak into the mic.
So we were blessed with Google Earth. My name is James Lowe, 3130, 49 South River Road. To have Google Earth do Boatnik several years ago. So you can see that we were quite spread out. There's, on the 2 tax lots for the city, there's close to 1 million, there's more than 1 million square feet. And at 36 square feet per person, it's right around 27,500 people that can be here. So we are working with staff right now to talk about spreading and diversifying the crowds and stuff. So we stand ready to get together with everybody so that we can get this process in line. Any questions?
Thank you. Anybody have a quick question? Rick?
So you would like to see us put it on the earliest workshop to discuss and present information that you have for us?
Yes. And discuss the possibility of, the last permit is waiting on the city to let us basically put on Boatnik at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Valerie?
Yeah, I guess my question is, at this point, do we know the guidelines? I mean, have they come down from the state, or do we kind of have to wait to a certain date? That's my question for you guys.
That has been a big discussion. Obviously, we are hoping at the beginning of, we're hearing at the beginning of May, it's very possible that those guidelines could change. As of right now, outdoor gatherings and stuff, depending on where we're at as far as high or extreme, it sounds like it's 15% if we're at high, and depending on the square footage, up to 50 people per X amount of square footage.
Thank you.
So
Rick?
Do you know if you have any other similar events that have already been held that you can use as a guideline to know how they were able to accomplish it?
As far as we know, right now, nothing of that size is the thing. As you know, Boatnik is second to third largest event in Oregon as far as attendance goes. So, you know, Pear Blossom is a good, you know, closest to us as far as that amount of people, fair, that kind of thing. But as of right now, no, we have not heard of any other event of this size yet.
Joel?
So I was thinking, you know, it's a public comment period. It's within our scope. It's not on our agenda. We could put it on the agenda. It's a revolving topic. It's going to be changing. I would say that we just need to put it on the agenda and then have all the information presented at that point in time and see where we're at and then make a decision and expedite the process tonight so that we don't have to solve it tonight.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. We
Great.
will discuss putting you on the agenda later.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, review of emails. Karen?
So there were 32 emails regarding, against changing the adult use ordinance, an invitation to attend the Josephine County BCC Cannabis Advisory Panel, a request for some Grants Pass souvenirs be sent to a boy in Germany, a request for permanent funding for public safety. There were comments regarding council procedure workshop, and there was a request for a maternal mental health month proclamation.
Thank you. All right, consent agenda. I'll pass it over to the council president.
Oh, it's on there. Okay, so item B, resolution designated the city manager as the budget officer according to ORS 294.331. Item C, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly financial report for January 2021. Item D, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly financial report for February 2021. Item E, motion approving the minutes of the city council meeting of April 7, 2021. And with that, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Brian with the second. All in favor of approving consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. Now I will entertain a motion to adjourn the city council meeting and convene the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. Brian?
I make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting and convene the Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Vanessa. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Council meeting adjourned. Welcome to the Urban Renewal Agency meeting where we have a consent agenda item. Are you going to take this one too, DJ?
I would be happy to. One item, A, resolution designated the city manager of the budget officer according to ORS 294.331. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Rick with the second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda? Aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and reconvene the City Council meeting. DJ.
I would like to participate. I move to adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and reconvene the City Council meeting.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second from Vanessa. All in favor of adjourning our briefest meeting ever and moving back to the council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, welcome back to the City Council meeting. Matters for mayor, council, and staff. First up, review of public comment. Is there any, yeah, DJ.
So I have a question. Could you outline for us the City Council's involvement in permit approvals?
So it really is a staff level permit approval, and they actually have a little more of a unique situation because we have a contract with them on an annual basis where they basically just contract the park. We give them the park for a week. Other permits are like alcohol use in the park, which you discussed with the chamber, doing alcohol during music in the park. This one is a little more unique because they're asking for us, they're wanting some kind of assurances if they could to continue to move forward with Boatnik as we know Boatnik, or to some degree as we know Boatnik. At this time, and staff at this time have been working with all event coordinators to try to get them to a place where we can hope that we get to do something. At this point in time, we haven't seen an actual plan on how they would facilitate that and meet the 15% maximum occupancy for outdoors according to the current COVID restrictions and guidelines by the state. And I would not feel comfortable signing an agreement for that and that use of and continuing that use of the park. So after I've had a conversation with them, basically explaining that, working with them through the process up to this point, I said the only other option would be for you to come to council, and so they came to council today. And I just had that conversation with them today, so it wasn't like I had an opportunity to even talk to any of you to bring it to a workshop at some point. But that's the situation they're in right now. I think they want to sort of tell their story. I think they want to talk about their plan a little more and maybe get to where both parties can be at a comfort level to have them give us some kind of a green light, yellow light, red light, I don't know, on this. We're at a difficult point right now because I'm sure that they're needing to secure the contracts that they have and give some assurances to individuals like the carnival and those contractors and all the food vendors and those kind of things. And yet we don't have the new guidelines that are supposed to come out May 2nd or May 4th or something along those lines. So that's really going to be telling. So that's just part of the discussion that we would have, I think, at a workshop.
So just to clarify, for this specific circumstance, the council has the authority to approve or deny their permit? Okay, we're taking into consideration state guidelines as well.
So I would say yes, because as one of the elements of their lease, it doesn't provide unfettered access. It provides a requirement that you obey all laws. And so there are certainly more laws on the books now surrounding events due to COVID situation and the governor's orders, and those count for laws they must abide by under the terms of the lease.
Thank you for that clarification.
Rick?
So if there's laws on the books like the OLCC laws, we permit them to sell alcohol, but we don't stand there and count how many people are being served and so forth, and actually whether the OLCC regulations are being adhered to. Do we police that, or does OLCC police it? That's a leading question.
Well, it's probably a combination. You know, I mean, for OLCC deals with OLCC is the ultimate grantor of liquor permits. You know, we have a city process for that stuff as well, but it's ultimately up to OLCC. You know, if there's alcohol violations that are going on in the presence of police officers, I'm sure they're going to address that.
So the real question when it comes to the COVID rules set out by the governor, are we the policemen for the COVID rules, or is the state?
COVID rules are actually enforced by BOLI, I believe.
So if we just grant them permission to operate and to conduct.
Well, I think we have a duty to at least make sure that they have a plan that shows compliance with those rules. But as far as enforcement, boots on the ground, level enforcement, I don't think that the city has an obligation to enforce COVID-related restrictions at Boatneck any more than we do at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Obviously, we have some issues to address regarding that request. Committee motions. We had several committee motions. The Tourism Advisory Committee has made a motion recommending that the council give at least 35% of tourism funds to the Destination Marketing Organization, commonly referred to as the DMO. We are addressing the DMO at our workshop next Monday. The Parks Advisory Committee made a motion recommending the council move the policy for naming and renaming parks, structures, and facilities, memorials, and dedications forward to the council for approval, and they're wanting us to schedule that topic for an upcoming workshop. And then the Committee on Public Art has made a motion recommending to remove a committee member due to lack of engagement and 3 missed meetings in a row. And that's something that the council has the final decision on based on recommendations from the committee. Comment on any of those items? Brian?
So just out of curiosity, what are we doing with these motions? Are they just going to kind of go in the agenda setting bucket and then we're going to hash it out later, or you guys will address it?
I think we have to be explicit about what gets on the agenda. So we take the motions and then we talk about what we would like to see on the agenda. So we have to take explicit action on their motions.
I have a question procedurally about the removing a committee member. Is that something that we would put on a future agenda to discuss that in specific?
So usually that just jumps right to a Wednesday meeting if we want to comply. I don't recall okay, there was an instant that we had a substantial issue and we had workshops and all kinds of different meetings, but generally that quick of a recommendation just goes right to a Wednesday for a discussion.
Okay, well, I'll recommend doing that on COPA's recommendation there. Tourism Advisory Committee, I mean, they're making a recommendation about a spending decision. That's something we're having a discussion on over the course of the next couple weeks. So I think we'll just acknowledge their recommendation when that time comes. Parks Advisory Committee, are we inclined to put that on a future workshop?
Just a meeting. Joel?
Yes.
Okay, Joel's saying yes, Brian's nodding yes. All right, DJ's given a thumbs up. Okay, so we'll work on adding that to a future workshop. Are there any council liaison reports tonight?
Oh, one.
Valerie?
I promise I'll keep it short. I was so excited at our last MRMPO meeting, Mid-Road Metropolitan Planning Organization, just because I heard that Allen Creek is going to the design phase. So I'm so excited to have Allen Creek be brought to the table because that's a huge part of our housing. This is a step forward. So it is in the design phase right now.
Thank you. Vanessa?
The COPA committee motion gives the gist of that meeting, but I have a couple things to add. They have submitted a call to artists for their duck lot. They're going to be putting in an art installation there, whatever that looks like to that artist that's chosen. And they are continuing to work on their GIS art map, working through the kinks of that. Just today we had our Josephine County Emergency Management meeting, and the biggest takeaway was that the fire officials representing in that meeting are anticipating a pretty significant wildfire season this year. That's going to begin sooner than normal, so be cognizant of that. And also worth mentioning that Pacific Power does have a bill assistance program for anyone that's struggling to pay their power bills. That can be found online on their website or by calling 888-221-7070.
It is also on the Chamber of Commerce's website too, so you can find it there.
I'm sorry, one more time?
It's also on the Chamber of Commerce website. I saw it on there today, so.
Thank you.
Another source.
Thank you. Other reports? Joel?
Just very shortly, the Economic Development Committee, Joint Committee, there's 2 items. One is there's an opportunity for small business owners to get some tuition assistance. In fact, they can take the course free on managing a small business. And it looked like I looked at the curriculum, it looks like a pretty good report or a pretty good class. And then the second thing is there's another COVID funding program for small business on if you've given your employees family or sick leave during the COVID crisis, that you can apply and get that reimbursed. So if you have any questions on that, get a hold of Susan Sater here at Grants Pass.
Alrighty, other liaison reports or mayor council comments? We've kind of morphed in between these 2 items. Brian?
Yeah, I have a comment just to follow up on when I referenced Monday that the school district is considering putting a cell tower at Gilbert Creek Park. I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on that. So at this point, I've talked with a couple of you, and I've talked with some city staff, and I talked to Brad, and he sent me an email because the question was, can they even put a cell tower there? And basically, what he said is the development code only allows new freestanding telecommunication facilities in 6 zones, none of which are residential. All of Gilbert Creek Park is zoned R18. So that wouldn't be allowed there. However, rooftop or facade mounted antennas are allowed with a conditional use permit. So without going into the entire email, it sounds like it may not be as straightforward for them to decide to put a cell tower there as I originally thought. So I will stay on top of it, and I will keep you all apprised, and I don't think anything is imminent. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie?
I just have one thing I wanted to share, and this is about the Grants Pass High School Band, and this is a feel-good. The Grants Pass High School Band was given a national award today, the 2021 Heart of the Arts Award for their compassionate reaching out to the Phoenix High School Alameda after the Alameda fire. And so they reached out student by student and did a lot for Phoenix High School. So they were nationally recognized for that today. So I like to see those sorts of things, and I think we need to focus on those when they happen.
Pretty cool. Thank you. Vanessa?
Since we've morphed into comments, I'd like to give one as well. And I'll be the broken record in the room, reminding the community of the public safety levy coming up. This public safety levy renewal this May. Our ballots will be mailed out in just a few short days. And I did just want to remind the community that without this levy, unfortunately, this council would be forced to conduct cuts of personnel. This translates to firefighters and police officers, and segueing into what Councillor Lovelace had said, mentioning the Alameda fire that happened last year, and the expected record fire season that ODF is anticipating this year. We cannot afford to lose a single public safety professional, so just wanted to put a call to action and joining me in supporting the levy renewal this May.
Thank you. Other comments? Alrighty. Comments from staff?
And make it really quick because we're coming upon the 9 o'clock meeting. So 2 comments. One is I just found out about an emergency management grant that Sarah Rubrick would like to apply for. It would be for the city of Ashland, Medford, and Grants Pass. We'd each receive $150,000 to purchase barricades and a trailer. In the event of a catastrophe, we could share those resources and they'd be shipped to whatever communities needed. We normally have larger grants like that come to you for approval. It's due on Friday. They're trying to get it done. There's no match required. Just wanted to sort of get consensus that it's okay that we do that. Again, it's a regional approach grant between the 3 larger cities in Southern Oregon.
You support that, Council? I'm seeing hands raised, nods from everybody. Think you're good?
And then the other item I just want to report on, I had an excellent meeting with some key stakeholders with regards to urban campground. That was something the council wanted staff to start looking into. We ended up identifying a number of critical success factors in order for an urban campground to occur here in this community, along with some desired outcomes and objectives. Through that process, it was about a 2.5-hour meeting. It went really well. The top 3 critical success factors, 2 of the 3 we have already accomplished, and that is finding resources to have an urban campground and finding a service provider to do it. The third going down that critical success factor is property, and I'm working on that right now, but I just wanted to give you just a quick update that we had a successful meeting and are making progress.
Thank you, Aaron. Oh, Adam. Tick, tick, tick.
A budget committee member I'll be out of town until May 17th, but would like to participate by phone, so with your blessing, I'll make sure that happens.
Okay. Budget committee meeting by phone. All right. Before we turn into a pumpkin, is there a motion to adjourn? Rob?
Question, Adam or Aaron, Do we have the dates of the budget committee meetings?
We'll get it, we'll mail that out to you if you'd like a calendar. Email it out.
All right, motion to adjourn? Valerie?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second from DJ, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, see you next Monday.